The TrimUI Smart Pro is a console that has been around for the best part of a year now. Initially, the Smart Pro impressed with its great PS Vita inspired looks and superb build quality. However, the performance was a bit lacking, especially when trying to delve into some of the PSP gaming. But things are different now. The TrimUI Smart Pro has been updated with a significant software boost which looks to solve a lot of its emulation shortcomings. Can the TrimUI Smart Pro now live up to its impressive looks, or does it still miss the mark? I've been using the TrimUI Smart Pro exclusively as my #1 console for the past week to answer these questions, and this is what happened. When I first got the TrimUI Smart Pro earlier this year, I opted for the white version. Anyone who has been with the channel for a while knows how much I love the PS Vita and how much I've wanted a white one to go into the collection. And the white TrimUI Pro managed to scratch that itch somewhat. However, when I was choosing this time round, I opted for the black version to see how it compares. Now, just to make things clear, new orders of the TrimUI Smart Pro will come with the new CrossMix-OS upgrade. However, you can just update your existing Smart Pro by copying the CrossMix-OS onto an SD card and following the upgrade steps. Other than that, there should be no difference in newly ordered consoles. Having said that, over the week of using my new Smart Pro and comparing it to my original white one, the new one did feel a little bit tighter. By that I mean, there was a bit of a hollow loose sound when I tapped on the screen of my original white one. Yet with the new black one, that noise doesn't exist, making it feel a bit more tightly put together. Now, this could be unique to my original TrimUI Smart Pro, or maybe TrimUI have further tweaked their build process. Beyond that, there were no noticeable differences. I will say that the black one looks a little less impressive than the white model, although I think that could have been said for the original PS Vitas too. Having been a while since I last used my TrimUI Smart Pro, I'd forgotten that there is no L3 or R3 click function to the analog sticks. Something that really feels amiss on a modern retro handheld. I guess it caters towards the generations of gaming up to and including the PSP well enough, but it still feels a bit weird. The bigger issue is the lack of range on the analog sticks. Ultimately something that didn't take away from my gaming experiences throughout the week, but still is a bit lacking. However, the big payoff for the lack of range is the huge pocketability of the TrimUI Smart Pro. It really is a slick device to carry around with you. My new TrimUI Smart Pro came with a fully loaded 256GB SanDisk Ultra SD card. I was really impressed by that, as I don't think I've ever seen an SD card as high quality as a SanDisk compact with a retro handheld. And at 256GB, it came packed. Absolutely packed with PSP games, which shows that the new software really does mean business. To start things off, I decided to jump in at the deep end with Burnout on the PSP. A really fast-paced game that pushes the limits of PSP emulation, and the TrimUI Smart Pro performed absolutely brilliantly, but not at 100%. For as great as the experience was, there were definitely a few moments I noticed some slowdown. I'm not gonna lie, at first I was a little disappointed. However, after playing around with the system for a bit, I noticed something really interesting. Whenever you have a game selected in the main menu, if you press the X button, it brings up a selection of emulators to use. I played around a bit with this and actually found that Burnout ran pretty much perfectly with some of the other options. It's a bit of a trial and error to find the right one, but to have this option is a great idea, and really shows how much the CrossMix-OS is focused on providing the best emulation experience it possibly can. In the first few days, the biggest challenge I faced is one that is more individual to me. You see, the nature of doing these week-long challenges back-to-back means that inevitably sometimes I'll go from a highly capable device to a less capable device. It doesn't mean that the less capable device is any less impressive, as it's all relative based on cost, size, etc. But naturally sometimes I'll go from really enjoying a game on one console to not possibly being able to play that game on the next console, and that's what's happening this time round. I was enjoying the Thing on the RG406V, but now I'm playing on the TrimUI Smart Pro, I can't possibly play it, and that's really distracting. I figured I could alleviate the distraction somewhat by playing a different spooky game on the TrimUI Smart Pro, so I decided to try it Alone in the Dark on the MS-DOS emulator. Yeah, that wasn't a good idea. Now, it's not that Alone in the Dark is a bad game. Story-wise, it actually had me pretty gripped. However, I don't normally use these devices for MS-DOS emulation, and to be honest, I don't think I will be again anytime soon. The controls just felt too weird, I guess with it not being a mouse and keyboard. Instead, I jumped into something completely different, some Hydro Thunder on the Dreamcast. A really fun experience which showed off just how well the new software on the TrimUI Smart Pro handles Dreamcast emulation. The next day, I decided to go for another spooky game, a game on the PSP that I've been wanting to play for a while, Third Birthday. But this wasn't what I expected at all. Now, as I know it, Third Birthday is a sequel to the Parasite Eve games, a series of games not too dissimilar in story to Resident Evil, so I expected something similar. However, I found myself playing something completely different. Absolutely great fun, but not at all what I expected. Instead of being an action RPG, Third Birthday is instead a third-person shooter. It has a really interesting story that includes some form of time travel and also adds in some great mechanics of being able to jump from NPC host to NPC host in a body snatcher kind of way. But it's very much focused on stage-by-stage shooting action as opposed to slower paced survival horror. I thoroughly enjoyed playing Third Birthday and think it has some great ideas, but it did remind me of something about the PSP game library. And that is how many games that came out based off existing franchises that actually took gameplay in a totally different direction. One of the most noticeable for me being Metal Gear Acid. At the time, it felt a bit like a workaround for the lower power of the PSP compared to the PS2. However, it has actually resulted in a very unique game library for the PSP that stands out in and of itself. And being able to experience this amazing library on a modern handheld that feels like an iteration of a Sony handheld really is a special thing. The more I played with the TrimUI Smart Pro of the week, the more I got drawn into its charm and started to uncover some of the more interesting details of the new software upgrade. Alongside OTA updates, screen recording, and ROM image scraping was the FN key functionality. The FN key is a slide switch on the bottom of the console that originally I wasn't really sure what it did. However, the FN or function key setting lets you decide what the switch does, including LED control, silent mode, turbo button switch, and my favourite, CPU performance mode, enabling you to boost the CPU and get even more out of your PSP emulation. It does feel like something as important as CPU performance mode should be more obvious, but either way, having access to it is yet another great feature of CrossMix-OS. To round off the week, I decided to jump into some emulation I don't normally dabble in, the Nintendo DS. I don't normally bother with DS emulation as I find not having a dual screen really takes away from the experience. Nevertheless, I decided to jump into another game I've been meaning to get around to for a while, and that's 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. A brilliant mix of point and click and visual novel. Instantly the story had me hooked. I've always absolutely loved games like these, especially with such interesting stories. I knew I would enjoy this game and was not disappointed. Even without the dual screen, the TrimUI Smart Pro does a great job of emulating it. It was, however, while playing 999 on the DS that I noticed my first and only real issue with the CrossMix-OS. As I spent most of my time during the week playing 999, I often had the console in sleep mode to jump back into the game at any point. Now, this sleep mode is great at extending the battery life, however, when coming out of sleep mode, I found myself often wondering if the console had crashed. The screen comes on, but it kind of freezes and takes a while to get back up and running, long enough for it to actually take away from the experience of being able to grab the Smart Pro from your pocket and have a quick gaming session. For such a superbly pocketable device, this is an issue I'd really like to see fixed. The TrimUI Smart Pro is and always has been such a slick, well-designed and great-looking console. But the impressive and slick looks of the TrimUI Smart Pro is where it kind of shoots itself in the foot. You see, it looks like such a premium and capable device. On first impressions, you'd expect it to be able to handle up to PS2 gaming and maybe even a little beyond. But it tops out at PSP and doesn't even have a touchscreen. Granted, a touchscreen would be pretty pointless on the TrimUI Smart Pro, but it looks like it should have one. When the TrimUI Smart Pro first came out, there wasn't as much competition. For its lack of power, it still stood out as a great looking and brilliantly priced console. These days, there is huge competition in the emulation retro handheld covering up to and including the PSP, with the likes of the ever-growing XX range from Anbernics, making it really hard for the TrimUI Smart Pro to stand out. The XX lineup has positioned itself as a great set of consoles that aims to cover every form factor to cater all needs. However, the TrimUI Smart Pro manages to still stand tall as a single device with a commitment to get the absolute best out of it, with continually tweaked and improved software and at a fantastically budget-friendly price. The TrimUI Smart Pro has shown just how important software is on retro handhelds, and what a game changer the right software can be. CrossMix-OS shows that the TrimUI Smart Pro is and always was a fantastic budget handheld that ticks almost every box, and that with continued support we can continue to squeeze every last bit of potential out of it. A great indication not just for the TrimUI Smart Pro, but also for the future of TrimUI consoles. But what if you just don't like the PS Vita form factor or lack of L3 and R3 buttons? Maybe you want to find the perfect form factor just for you. Then you need to check out the Anbernics XX lineup, starting with this video right here.